for hundreds of thousands of years, before parenting books, before sleep schedules, before behavioral psychologists and feeding consultants, and conflicting advice from every direction, human parents kept their babies alive. Not just alive. Their children grew, developed, bonded, learned language, formed relationships, and eventually built the entire foundation of human civilization, with none of the tools modern parenting culture tells you that you need. So here's the question nobody seems to be asking. What exactly were they doing? And why does almost every answer look exactly like the instinct you were told to suppress? Ancient practice 1: continuous carrying. Ancient human babies were not put down. Not in a separate room. Not in a designated sleep space across the house. Not on a playmat while the parent moved to another area. They were carried. Almost continuously against the body of a caregiver mother, father, grandmother, older sibling for the majority of their waking and sleeping hours in the earliest months of life. This was not a parenting choice. It was a survival reality. A baby left on the ground in the ancient world was a baby that could be taken by a predator, exposed to cold, or separated from the group. Keeping the baby on the body was the only safe option. But here is what that survival practice accidentally did to the baby's nervous system. Constant movement, constant warmth, constant heartbeat, constant physical regulation from a calm adult body. A carried baby's cortisol stays low, their heart rate stays stable, their temperature stays regulated, their nervous system stays in the developmental state, calm, open, connected where the most important brain building happens. Ancient parents did not know any of this. They just knew that babies on bodies stayed alive. Modern science now knows why. Ancient practice 2: communal sleeping. Ancient humans slept together. Not as a family unit in separate beds in separate rooms. As a group. Clustered together for warmth, for protection, for the shared regulation that comes from bodies sleeping near other bodies. Infants slept in physical contact with caregivers, not because attachment parenting told them to, because the alternative, a baby alone in the cold dark, was genuinely dangerous. And what that communal sleeping produced in the infant nervous system was exactly what we now know the developing brain needs most at night. Proximity to a regulated adult. Consistent warmth. The smell and sound of a familiar person. The reassurance delivered not in words but in biology that the safe people are still here, and sleep is safe to continue. Mothers who slept near their babies fed them more frequently through the night, which supported milk supply, supported infant growth, and kept both mother and baby in lighter, more connected sleep cycles that made nighttime feeding easier for everyone. A brief note that matters here: the communal sleeping of ancient humans happened on firm ground surfaces without soft bedding. Modern safe sleep guidelines exist for important reasons. Proximity does not require surface sharing. A bedside bassinet gives a baby most of what their ancient nervous system is looking for without the surface risks. Ancient practice 3: immediate response to crying. In the ancient world, a crying baby was a baby that got picked up, not after a few minutes. Not after the parent decided whether the cry was real or manipulative. Not according to a method designed to teach the baby to self-soothe. Immediately. Every time. Because in the environment ancient humans lived in, a crying baby was a baby announcing its location to every predator within earshot. Leaving that cry unanswered was not just emotionally difficult. It was dangerous. So ancient parents responded. Fast. Every time. Without hesitation, and without guilt. And what that immediate, consistent response built in the infant brain was exactly what attachment researchers have spent decades trying to explain to modern parents. A nervous system that learned through hundreds of repetitions of need, followed immediately by relief that the world is responsive. That distress does not last. That the safe person always comes. That learning does not make a child weaker. It makes them braver. Ancient practice 4: allomothering in action. Ancient mothers did not raise children alone. The idea of one parent, or even two parents, solely responsible for a baby's care every hour of every day would have been completely foreign to the ancient human experience. Babies were passed between caregivers constantly. Grandmothers held them while mothers foraged. Aunts fed them when mothers were tired. Older children carried them while adults worked. Trusted members of the group stepped in without being asked because the baby's survival was understood to be everyone's responsibility. Researchers call this allomothering, the care of children by adults other than the biological mother. And the evidence that this was the original design for human infant care is written directly into the biology of the human baby. A human infant is the only newborn of any primate species that will calm in the arms of a familiar non-mother caregiver. That responsiveness to multiple caregivers is not accidental. It is a feature, built in by evolution for a world where the village was always present. And the modern parent raising a baby largely alone, without the grandmother, without the aunts, without the rotating group of trusted adults, is not experiencing a lifestyle choice. They are experiencing the removal of a biological support system that kept both babies and parents functional for most of human history. Ancient practice 5 on-demand feeding. Ancient babies fed when they were hungry, not on a 2-hour schedule, not according to a feeding window. When the baby showed signs of hunger, which in the early weeks and months was very frequently the baby was fed. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer communities, which most closely resemble the ancient human lifestyle, show babies feeding between 2 and 4 times per hour in the early weeks. Short, frequent feeds. Demand-driven. Responsive to the baby's signals rather than the clock. This pattern supported consistent milk supply, kept the baby's blood sugar stable, kept cortisol low, and kept the baby's nutritional needs met in a way that longer, less frequent feeds cannot replicate. Ancient parents did not know about milk supply science or cortisol regulation. They just responded to a hungry baby. And in doing so accidentally, instinctively, reliably, they gave that baby exactly what its biology required. Ancient practice 6 natural weaning and gradual independence. Ancient children were not pushed toward independence on a schedule. They were allowed to find it at their own pace. The transition from complete dependence to gradual independence happened slowly, organically, driven by the child's own developmental readiness rather than by a cultural timeline imposed from outside. Children in ancient communities walked when they were ready, explored when their nervous system felt safe enough to explore, and moved away from constant caregiver contact as their own confidence grew, not because they were encouraged to be independent before they felt safe. The secure base model that attachment researchers now describe as the foundation of healthy development, the child ventures out when ready and returns to the safe person when not, was simply how ancient childhood worked, not as a parenting philosophy, as a daily reality. Here is the part that needs to be said clearly. Modern parenting culture schedules, sleep training, independence from early infancy, the isolated nuclear family is not an evolution of ancient wisdom. It is a replacement of it. And that replacement happened remarkably recently. The Industrial Revolution moved families from communities into cities. The nuclear family replaced the extended family network. Mothers moved from communal living into isolated households. Economic pressure required both parents to work. And a parenting culture grew up around those economic realities, not around biology, not around developmental science, not around what children actually need. Schedules were invented for convenience. Sleep training was invented to fit adult work patterns. Early independence was encouraged not because children were ready for it, but because the economic structure of modern life required parents to be available for other things. None of it was designed with the developing brain in mind. All of it was designed around the needs of a system that required adults to function at maximum capacity in a world that was not built for babies. Here's the question that always follows. Is it actually safe to return to ancient practices in the modern world? And the honest answer is some ancient practices, yes, some, with important modifications. Ancient communal sleeping happened on firm ground. Modern adaptation means room sharing with a safe, separate sleep surface, not necessarily surface sharing. Ancient on-demand feeding is supported by modern lactation science as the foundation of successful breastfeeding. Modern adaptation simply means responding to hunger cues rather than watching a clock. Ancient carrying is supported by modern baby-wearing research as beneficial for both infant development and parental mental health. Modern adaptation means using well-designed carriers with safe positioning guidelines. The ancient instinct was right. The specific ancient context sometimes needs updating for modern safety knowledge. Take the wisdom. Apply the safety. Both things can be true at once. Evolutionary psychologists use a specific term for the environment that human babies were designed to grow up in. It is called the environment of evolutionary adaptedness. It means the set of conditions, physical, social, relational, that the human infant nervous system evolved inside of and therefore expects to find when it arrives in the world. That environment includes continuous physical contact, immediate response to distress, multiple consistent caregivers, on-demand feeding, communal sleeping, and gradual self-directed independence. The modern Western infant environment provides almost none of these things, and the distance between what the human infant nervous system expects to find, based on hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, and what the modern world actually provides, is the source of most of the difficulty that modern parents struggle with every day. The baby is not the problem. The environment is the mismatch. Here is what all 6 ancient practices have in common. Every single one of them is something modern parents feel the instinct to do and are told by modern parenting culture to resist. Pick them up immediately, but do not create dependency. Keep them close, but teach them to be independent. Feed on demand, but get them on a schedule. Respond every time, but let them learn to self-soothe. The war between modern parenting advice and parental instinct is not a sign that parents do not know what they are doing. It is a sign that modern parenting advice is fighting against a system that was refined over hundreds of thousands of years of keeping children alive. Your instincts are not feelings to be managed. They are a survival system. Ancient, tested, and precise. And the science is finally catching up to what your body already knew. If ancient practices map so perfectly onto modern developmental science, if carrying, proximity, immediate response, communal care, demand feeding, and gradual independence are exactly what the research now recommends, then the question that follows is both simple and everything. What happens when you stop fighting your instincts and start following them? What becomes possible for your baby and for you when you stop trying to parent the modern way and start parenting the human way? Here is what evolutionary biology and attachment theory together explain about why ancient practices work. The human infant nervous system is not a general-purpose system that adapts equally well to any environment. It is a specific system, built for a specific environment, calibrated by evolution to expect specific inputs. Physical contact activates the oxytocin system, the bonding and calming system in both parent and baby. It suppresses cortisol. It regulates heart rate and breathing. It is not optional comfort. It is a biological input that the developing nervous system requires. Immediate response to distress teaches the nervous system something that shapes every relationship the child will ever have. That need is safe to express. That distress does not last. That the world is responsive. Multiple consistent caregivers, the village distribute the regulatory load across several nervous systems instead of placing it entirely on one, which keeps the primary caregiver regulated. And a regulated caregiver is the most powerful developmental tool a baby has. Gradual self-directed independence builds a nervous system that ventures out from a position of genuine security, not forced separation. And the confidence built from genuine security is the only kind that lasts. Ancient parents discovered all of this through necessity. Modern science confirmed it through research. The conclusion is identical. If this is changing the way you see your parenting instincts, if it is giving you permission to trust what you already feel, this channel is exactly where you need to be. Real science. Plain language. Every week. Hit subscribe right now. 4 ancient practices any modern parent can bring back starting today. First, carry your baby more. Not all day. Not perfectly. But more than you currently do. A carrier, a sling, or simply your arms during the fussy periods of the day. Every minute of physical contact delivers the cortisol-lowering nervous system regulating biological input that the developing brain is waiting for. You are not creating dependency. You are completing a developmental process. Second, move your baby's sleep space closer to yours, not into your bed, into your room. A bedside bassinet within arm's reach gives your baby the proximity their ancient nervous system is calibrated to expect: the smell, the sound, the warmth of a safe person nearby, while maintaining the separate sleep surface that modern safe sleep guidelines require. Both things are possible at the same time. Third, respond to crying before you decide what it means. Before you assess the cry, before you check the clock, before you consider whether responding will create a pattern, go. Pick them up. The time it takes to make that decision is time the nervous system spends in distress. Ancient parents did not deliberate. Their instinct moved before their mind did. Trust yours. Fourth, find one other person to share the load with. Not a hired professional. A person, a neighbor, a friend, a family member, someone who can hold the baby for an hour while you reset. The village does not need to be large to function. It needs to be real. One consistent other person who genuinely shows up changes the experience of early parenting more than any single technique or strategy ever could. You are not a modern parent failing at modern parenting. You are an ancient parent with ancient instincts, an ancient nervous system, and an ancient biological design for raising children trying to do that ancient job inside a system that was built against everything your biology knows. The schedules that do not feel right for a reason. The instinct to pick them up immediately is immediate for a reason. The exhaustion of doing this alone is exhausting for a reason. None of it is weakness. All of it is your ancient parenting system telling you clearly, loudly, in every hard moment, this is not how this was supposed to work. The most tested parenting system in human history is not in a book. It was not invented by a researcher or a pediatrician or a sleep consultant with a best-selling method. It was built over hundreds of thousands of years by every parent who held a crying baby in the dark and felt, without being told, without reading it anywhere, that the right thing to do was to hold on. By every mother who kept her baby close, not because she had studied attachment theory, but because her body would not let her put them down. By every community of people who understood without any science to explain it that a baby was not one person's responsibility. That it took all of them. That the child belonged to everyone who loved them. That system is not lost. It is inside you, in every instinct you feel and hesitate to follow. In every moment you reach for your baby, before you decide whether reaching is the right strategy. In every time your body moves toward them, before your mind has finished making its case. That movement, that instinct, that ancient, tested, refined, over hundreds of thousands of years knowing, that is not something you need to learn. It is something you need to stop being talked out of. If this gave you permission today to trust what you already feel, share it with a parent who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because the most important things about raising a child were figured out long before any of us arrived. And we are here to help you remember them.